I have this irrational fear of landing in the wrong place. There was a doctor on board who said we had to land. When we went to inspect the plane, we discovered a bird lodged in the nose gear. Listen, it's flat, right? I'm like, what's flat? Well, the Earth is flat.
Why do you need a second pilot?
In fact, we're both first officers. It's a common belief that the captain does everything, while the first officer is just there for paperwork, carrying the bags. I don't know why people think that. If a captain were alone, there'd be no one for them to command. But in reality, our duties are divided. For example, I might fly out, and the first officer flies back. It's to ensure we don't get too fatigued. Primarily because we're all human and can make mistakes. The first officer not only oversees the captain, but can also perform all the duties a captain is trained for, ensuring a safe flight. It's like having two engines on a plane. A plane can fly on one engine, but there are two for safety. It's a dialogue, a team effort. So it's just that one is more experienced and has the final say, much like in military hierarchies. But overall, it's a team. Actually, safety often comes down to such minor details. For instance, the captain and first officer eat different meals at different times to prevent both from being poisoned at the same time. If one gets sick, the other won't eat and will continue the flight.
Is it possible to get lost in the sky?
Of course. Isn't it obvious? Look, it's like the fifth ocean, boundless. Of course, navigation and flying skills are among the fundamental requirements for flight crews. Actually, I believe it's impossible to get lost in the sky because those who pilot planes are well prepared for this. They live for it and can always find some landmarks. Even if everything else fails, you can navigate visually, or even by the stars at night. North here, east there. I'm not joking. You can navigate by the sun. The sun, a watch, everything you need. I have this irrational fear of landing in the wrong place. I catch myself thinking it's impossible because our system is so thoroughly tested. We input a huge amount of information into the machine, like a navigator, about where we're flying. Then the air traffic controller monitors us. This system is not just duplicated twice or thrice, but probably 10 times over. On any smartphone, you can see where we are. Satellites, flight radar give you minute-by-minute accuracy from the moment we start the engines to when we land in Paris, Frankfurt, Amsterdam.
Can you recall any incident?
We took off from the capital of Azerbaijan, reached cruising altitude, and then a flight attendant tells us there's a 12-year-old boy having an epileptic seizure, all pale. There was a doctor on board who said we had to land, and in about 12 minutes, we were parked. It was so urgent, thankfully. There was a suitable airport for landing. We handed the boy over to the paramedics. A few hours later, we took off again. Saving a life is what matters most. As always, I arrived at the station the evening before the flight, fully expecting, or rather convinced, that my regular train would be there. I arrive, and there are no trains at all that day. I couldn't make it to the flight. I traveled to another city. It was the closest point reachable by train. It was winter, a snowstorm. I arrived in a different city, knowing nothing. It was night outside. There was just one taxi driver. I gave him all the money I had, a few dollars more, and he drove me 100 kilometers. On the way, you couldn't see anything. There was a blizzard. He took me to the airport. We got there about 3 hours before departure. I had a flight 2 years ago. As we taxied to the gate, I saw the wide eyes of the ground crew greeting us, puzzled by what was happening. Everything seemed normal, everything spinning and turning. When we went to inspect the plane, we discovered a bird lodged in the nose gear, an eagle, actually. And it had landed so fortunately that it was still alive. It was a mountain airport where bird encounters are quite common.
Does work interfere with your personal life?
It really hits personal life. A child says, "My dad's a pilot, but I can't remember what he looks like." It's part of the myth, but there's something to it. You might work only a bit, but you're working when your loved ones, they come home in the evening, and you're going to the next flight. There's an overlap, and you don't see each other for, say, 3 or 4 days. Early departures mean waking up while your daughter is still asleep, and by the time you get home, she's asleep again. My wife made it clear a long time ago that no matter our relationship, I need to leave for work in a good psychological state, frankly speaking. So, by the time I leave for work, we've already made up, and all should be well. If you already have a family, then this work unlikely be a problem. Honestly, I don't know if this profession is popular among women, but it's not like we have the word pilot written on our foreheads. I'd guess it is, probably because it's a rare and somewhat romantic profession. The most important thing is to be a good person. It doesn't matter what job you have.
If a child wants to see the cockpit, would you let them?
No, of course not. We are directly in control of the aircraft, and it's unacceptable to be distracted or to bring a passenger into the cockpit. And unfortunately, there have been tragic incidents in global practice when passengers entered the cockpit. In flight, we simply do not have the right to do that. I would very much like to, but we cannot. After landing, once the passenger doors are opened, the cockpit can be opened too, and I always welcome it.
What happens if lightning strikes the plane?
Nothing will happen. Well, I think there might still be some surge, some voltage spike. The lights might flicker. The plane is designed so that lightning will pass through and exit via static dischargers. It's fundamentally safe. We avoid it. We're categorically forbidden from entering thunderstorm areas, but there's no need to fear it. The plane undergoes special stress tests. It's twisted, turned, and tried to be deformed. So, there's no need to be afraid.
Why do passengers applaud pilots after landing?
Well, honestly, we don't hear it. It's quite noisy after landing. It might not be so much a sign of respect as it is of gratitude. For a smooth landing, for example. Someone liked it, and it's contagious, so everyone starts applauding. Probably like that. Sometimes we hear passengers applauding. They always applaud after touchdown. I understand it's just a moment of relief for those with a fear of flying. Their anxiety is finally over. Although, I'd applaud after we've cleared the runway. It's some kind of assessment of your work, maybe. Or when it's passed through the flight attendant that it was an excellent landing, or that they enjoyed the flight in general. You take it as an assessment of your work. Very pleased. A nice way to end the workday.
Can flight attendants come in to chat with you?
Flight attendants don't just come in for a chat. It's, let's say, their direct duty to check in after certain periods, to talk to the pilot, to assess their mental clarity, to ensure they're capable of fulfilling their duties. Just to chat? Probably not. It's not that it's forbidden. Only the lead flight attendant, and only with the captain's permission and solely on work-related matters. I think they hardly have the time to come in and chat in the cockpit. If something happens directly on the plane, of course, they must report it to us, so that we're in the loop. It's not about chatting. These are strictly work-related moments. Conversations are saved for when we're on the ground.
How do people react to finding out you're a pilot?
People react with surprise. It's a relatively rare profession. Most people are surprised. You're actually an airline pilot, a captain, and you're so young. Everyone imagines captains to be gray-haired. I think when people find out you're a pilot, they start to show interest. Deep down, everyone has some question. I've been approached with, "Listen, it's flat, right?" I'm like, "What's flat?" "Well, the Earth is flat." They often ask, "When will you take me for a ride? Why do we dump fuel over someone's property or something?" To make things grow better, probably. In reality, none of our planes are even remotely equipped with a system for dumping fuel.
Are you ever scared during a flight?
Our main fear, probably like on any responsible job, is the fear of making the wrong decision. These decisions are made within 2 or 3 seconds. The outcome of the flight can depend on these decisions. For example, the decision to abort or continue a takeoff is made within a second or 2. There's no more time. The plane is accelerating. You shouldn't fear the weather. You should respect it. That's what we say. So, if there are storms along the route, we avoid them. If landing involves crosswinds, you're trained for it. You can handle it. It's a training exercise for you. I'm prepared for it. It doesn't threaten safety in the slightest. I control the plane, I see. It's like driving a car. But, not everyone likes to sit in the back, to trust their life. When I sit in front, I have no fear. I'm in control of the situation. There's no such criterion as danger, I'd say. Because when it's dangerous, we don't fly. There are certain limits we don't cross. That's all we ensure. We don't allow any risks, fundamentally. The moment we stop fearing anything as a pilot, aviation will cease to be the safest mode of transport.
What do you love about your job?
Such sunsets, you won't see them anywhere else, only in the sky. Well, I think the most positive moment is when you can see the sun in any weather. You can't explain it. You can't describe it. Just 2 or 3 minutes after you've been in the sky, all your pressing problems, as cliché as it sounds, they fall into the background. No matter how bad or cold it is on the ground, once you rise above the clouds, the sun always shines. That's probably the most important thing.